Alright, Brush Monkeys, we are back, and we are wrapping up the Sisters of Battle box set with a two-part video on the Penitent engine. And this is... Last week we talked about the Arco-Flagellants and how horrible it was to be made into this mindless servitor killing machine. Well, the Arco-Flagellant is pretty mild compared to the Penitent engine. The Penitent engine basically looked at the tortures that Arco-Flagellants go through and said, hold my beer. Because they are, the poor guy attached to the front of this thing is not only pumped full of combat chemicals, you can see he's got ejectors on both sides there that are pumping him full of nasty stuff, but this helmet, this neuro implant helmet on him, if you can see that, that projects an image of all the pain and suffering his betrayal and heresy has caused. It's sort of like the penance stare in Ghost Rider, if you, for those of you that read comics, and it just fills him with such self-hatred and self-loathing that when this machine is sent into battle, it also starts pumping hallucinogens into his system that makes the enemy look like himself. So instead of looking out over an army of orcs or chaos marines or whatever, he just sees his own face projected on all these enemies, and so they're essentially killing themselves over and over and over again. And there is no hope of redemption. There's no temporary assignment to a Penitent engine, and once you've served your sentence, you're sent back into the ranks. Your only hope of redemption is death in this thing, and they are just... And essentially, from what I read in the codex, it seems like the person attached to this thing isn't really actually in control of it. It's almost a self-guided automaton that's just going out into the field. It's like a robot that just goes off into the field and kills the enemy, and this poor bastard's just strapped into this thing for the ride, watching it murder him over and over again. It is just the grimmest thing ever. It's just horrible. I almost feel bad for whatever poor heretic ends up strapped into this machine. But, as torturous as that sounds, what's even worse is trying to paint this thing while it's assembled. And you can see I've got several sub-assemblies. I've got the little guy that goes into this thing. I've got the main body of it, which I've also changed the pose of it a little bit. I took out the shoulder posts and this hip post, brought this leg forward and both arms forward, so it's standing in a more stable, shooty pose rather than the running pose it was supposed to be built in. And this guy, if you can see this, these two little hooks hook over the hips here, and then this plate attaches to the bottom of that, the bottom of those hooks. Yeah. And then this thing attaches over the front of that guy to the front of this thing, and then this part with his upper chest and manacles has to be attached to the front of this guy. So there's no way to paint all this with him put together. So I built sub-assemblies, and this is the main body of the sub-assembly, and he'll mostly be airbrushed with this Vallejo metal color steel. And then the base, I'm gonna paint some white ink on the base before I start with the steel, just to lighten it up a little bit, so I can do some contrast paints, like I think I may do black and gray, so it looks like the street and a sidewalk. And then this part will be basilicanum gray for the rubble, and then of course the robot will be steel. He'll have a lot of gold parts on him, and then all this stuff will be all airbrushed and painted separately. This will probably be done with the steel. This is, of course, going to be done with the steel. And then, of course, I've got to move the sticks around to paint them again. all of this stuff in the back is going to be initially painted with steel, and then I'll go back through and do the injectors like I did on the arcoflagellants, and move the blue tack, or move the sticky tack around to another part so I can paint the guy on the front. And yeah, so that's I put them on these sticks too, by the way. This is just poster tack and just a regular round dowel rod, because my my paint station has these little holes in it that hold parts for that hold brushes. But you can also stick these, I need to get some thinner dowel rods, but you can stick the dowel rods in there while they're drying. Just kind of let them sit there and dry while you're painting other parts of it. And it kind of keeps them up out of the way. So that helps. But yeah, so the first part is going to be probably the base coats and shade washing. The second part will get into some of the details on it. Like, there's a lot of details. These little what look like fence posts or fence railings. The flamers on the top and the flame canister, the promethium canisters, these smokestacks on the back, the little reactor thing. Lots of different little bits and pieces to this thing are going to be, oh, the flames up on the top, got to do those. A lot of little bits and pieces of this thing to be detailed out. And then the second part will also cover the assembly of all this. Once I get it all painted and get it all matte sealed, then we'll put the whole thing together, and I'll show you how that goes together, hopefully. But yeah, so for right now, I'm going to go airbrush all the steel parts and spray the white on the base there, and we'll get started. Yeah? All right, see you soon. Alright, brush monkeys. I have made some progress, as you can probably see, and I thought it was time to probably take a break and stop and give you an update. As you can see, the little colony of paints I'm planning on using for this thing have grown exponentially, mostly due to the sheer scope of this project. But I think it's coming along really well. As you can see, I've got all the golds done. I've got the skin and the clothing on this guy pretty well done. I might do a little design on the pants, I don't know. I might do a transfer with that. Still have a lot of wires to paint. I still have the chemical injectors to paint, although I based them in white so they'd be nice and vibrant. Now the sad thing is, when I go to put this in the Penitent engine itself, you're not going to be able to see a whole lot of that. But like this little part here is the foot plate, and it's got these little spiky bits on top here. I'm going to do some blood effects on that. Some of you might remember my video on blood effects, so you kind of have an idea what that's going to come out like. Here's this thing. I found out as I was painting this that it has, I don't know if you can see on here, these panels along the side. This one's mostly covered by purity seals and this electronic thing, but this one here is pretty easy to see. It's wood paneling on this thing, like it's a Winnebago or something. So I had to base that in the gray cere and then paint it with wildwood contrast paint just in those little sections, just so I can get that wood grain to stand out a little bit. I've got some purity seals on here to paint. I've got the little computer screen and some lights to paint on that one. Here is the main part of his body. Well, not the main part, but a good chunk of his body that's going on the front after it's done. This piece is pretty well done. There's not a whole lot of extra detail on that. I may shade wash the tag there a little bit just to make it stand out a little bit more, make the number a little more readable. This thing, as you can see, has got just a ton of details on it, and I've painted a bunch of them gold. As usual, all these golds are going to be painted with the gold Sharpie. In the few places where the Sharpie won't reach is either going to be, you're not going to be able to see it, or it's going to be shadowed anyway. The only exception to the gold paint is, I'm thinking the muzzles of these flamers, I'm going to leave those bronze. And I think I'm probably going to do a cool heat effect on that. So we'll get into that when I start doing them. I just realized I missed a spot there. But yeah, when I go to paint these barrels, I will go into how to do heat effects on flamer barrels, because it really is pretty easy. It's just 3 washes. You're just going to need Druki Violet, Drakenhof Nightshade, and Nuln Oil. And it'll make it look like that flamer's been used a lot. It's going to look like the... if I had my blowtorch here, I'd show you the barrel of the blowtorch. Does the same thing. I've got the base mostly painted. The asphalt on the street here and the concrete on the base there are going to get an additional wash. I think I'm going to use this Secret Weapon concrete wash here. Because that's going to dirty them both up. And then the, as you can see, the debris and the building part and everything have gotten a wash of the Basilicanum Gray contrast paint. I may give that another layer because some of it's looking a little light in places. I want it to be nice and dark. Speaking of nice and dark, the sewer lid here was originally painted with the same steel as the rest of the Penitent engine, and to differentiate it from the engine steel, I gave it a wash of Basilicanum Gray. And I don't know if you could see that or not, but it took all the metallic shine off of it while still managing to make it look like steel. It just looks like dull steel, especially compared to the foot that's standing on it right now. So I really kind of like how that turned out. I've never tried doing contrast paint over metallics before. You can kind of see it on this little curb thing too. I did it on that, and you can see where it still looks like steel, but it's a very dull, kind of non-reflective steel, which is kind of nice. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I've made some progress, obviously. I've got to paint a bunch of wires. There's just a ton of wires on this thing. And I got to go over all the golds again, got to do the lights, got to do the washes. The effects are probably going to have to wait until everything else is done, and I'm got it all matte sealed and I'm ready to start assembly. But making some really good progress here. So I think I'm going to turn this off for right now and take a break. And when I come back, I will have put some more washes on there and hopefully done most of the golds. But we'll see what happens. Right. See you in a bit. Alright, quick update time for y'all. I've made some more progress. I've gotten the golds layered. I still need to do the injectors on there, but you can see I got all the golds. This guy just needs the injectors colored and the wire done. This piece is done. So I went ahead and matte sealed it. The foot plate is done now. As you can see, I got the blood effects spattered on there. So I went ahead and matte sealed it too. It's ready to go. I finished up the cathedral front. So you can see I've got the lights done on there. I got the screen and the buttons and the purity seals and everything painted. I did all that detail this morning. So that's all good to go. And this bad boy, I've got the concrete and asphalt on the base washed. I got the gold detailed. I still need to finish doing the flames and the smoke up here, and I need to do the coloring on the barrel shroud, but we'll go over that in a little bit later. Other than that, yeah, it's coming along pretty nicely. So yeah, I've got the barrel shrouds and the flames, the base band left to do on that guy, and the wiring and injectors on that piece, and then I think we'll be ready to assemble. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break now and let those last little bits of washes dry, and I'll come back in a little bit. All right, see you soon. Bye. Alright, so I've made some more progress here. I've got all the injectors and the wiring done on this guy. And I gotta tell you, having spent 6 years as an electronics technician in the Navy, running actual wiring is less tedious than this nonsense was. This was a nightmare. But it's done, and he's all ready to go. I need to matte seal him, but I'm waiting for the paint to dry on that one. In the meantime, I've painted the orange onto the flames here, and I thought now might be a good time to go into heat coloring while I'm waiting on that. We're going to do heat coloring on the gun barrels here, the flamer barrels, and we're going to use 3 colors for this. We're going to do Druky Violet, Drakenhof Nightshade, and Nuln Oil. And we're going to work in quarters here. What I mean by that is the length of the gun barrel here, 1/4 of that is going to be that bare metal. The Druky Violet, we're going to go up to about 3/4 of the way and do all of that. With the Drakenhof Nightshade, we're going to do about halfway up. And with the Nuln Oil, we're going to do about 1/4 of the way up. And that'll give us a nice heat coloring on the barrels. So I'm going to give that a shake. And show you what I'm talking about here. Take just a little bit on the brush. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Put about 3/4 of the way up the barrel. We're just going to wash it purple. Right? I'm going to do the whole front of the thing. Front of the barrels. Go all the way back in there. Just give it a nice shade wash in purple. I'm going to do that with all the gun barrels. And we're going to let that dry. And I know it doesn't look like much now, but when it dries it'll be quite a bit more purple. And of course every subsequent layer you're putting on this, the Drakenhof Nightshade will make it a little bit darker. The Nuln Oil will make it a little bit darker still. And every subsequent wash you put on that is going to be darker and darker. And that's the idea. You want it to be darker near the front of the barrel where the flames are coming out, because that's where the heat source is. And it changes color as that heat moves. Obviously the barrel is going to be heated up more. The nozzle is going to be heated up more. And then the further back you go, the less heat builds up on these weapons. So there we go. We got the purple wash on there. I'm going to put that down and let that dry. And then we'll come back. I'll come back in a minute or two. I'm going to let that sit about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll put the Drakenhof Nightshade on there, and then we'll come back and do the Nuln Oil and just show you each step of the process. All right? Okay. Okay, we're back, and as you can see, the Druky Violet has dried, and it's left that nice kind of purplish tinge to the gun barrels, which looks really good over the gold there. So now we're going to go ahead and do the Drakenhof Nightshade, and we're going to do it the same way we did the Druky Violet, just not going up the barrel as far. Like I said, we're doing this in quarters. So with the Druky Violet, or excuse me, with the Druky Violet, we went up about 3/4 of the way up the barrel. With the Drakenhof Nightshade, we're only going to go up about halfway. Got that junk all over me. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Alright, so here's a gun barrel. You're only going to go up to right about there. Like I said, it's not going to be terribly obvious right from the get-go where it is, but as it dries you will see it get darker and become more obvious. Give me the other color here. Sorry, I'm trying to paint and keep it on camera at the same time. It's a little difficult. Come on, there we go. Alright, so again, as with the Drinky Violet, we're going to go ahead and take a break, let that dry, and then we'll come back and put the Nuln Oil on, and the Nuln Oil will just be on the very, very tip of it. Okay, so I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so we're back, and the Drakenhof Nightshade has dried. So we're going to go ahead and do the Nuln Oil on the barrel here. And this will wrap up our heat color change. So again, going in fourths, you can see I've got a quarter of the barrel is still brass, a quarter of it is Drinky Violet, and a quarter of it is, well, half of it is Drakenhof Nightshade. And there shouldn't be a whole lot of delineation between the blue and the purple, because they're similar colors, and it's just supposed to be a darker fade as it goes further forward. So we're going to do the last quarter of the barrel. It's the very tip here with Nuln Oil. To represent that very dark soot kind of look to the burn. Trying to keep it on the camera. Alright. Just do a little on the last quarter of the barrel there. Make sure you go all the way around. And make sure you get the tip of the barrel too. You really want that, because that's really where the majority of the heat is coming from, is that nozzle. It's coming off of there. So you want to make sure that's all. Yeah. Again, can't paint and film at the same time. There we go. Let's get on that on there. And there you have it. That's, if I can get it on camera. Get it to zoom in. And there you go. You get that nice fade from gold down to the black on the barrels. They both look pretty good. Get that one a little more over in the crevices there. That nice and dark in there, and there you go. So that one you can see really well. That's a nice fade between the gold to the purple, the blue, and the black, all the way to the end. And that's all it takes. Makes it look like the gun barrels have been used, all nice and dark. And so that's how you do the heat treatment on there. So for the most part, this thing is pretty well done. You can see I got the reds on the tops of the flames there. I just need to paint the smoke, and then the painting on this is going to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up part 1 on this. Part 2 is going to be quite a bit shorter video, because it's only going to involve the assembly of this thing. So I guess I got the base band still to do on it. Okay, so I'm going to paint the smoke and the base band, and then I'm going to wrap up this video and call it done. Okay, and the next video will involve the assembly and putting all these little various parts together, and how to glue them and where to glue them and all that kind of fun stuff. All right. See you soon. All right, brush monkeys, we are done with the Penitent engine. He is all painted up. I got the injectors all gloss coated, the wiring's all painted, the control panel's all painted. Everything's done on this guy. The only thing left to do is assemble him, and we're going to cover that in the next video. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day on this. Thank you for watching part 1 of the Penitent engine video. Painting the Penitent engine. Next week we will go into assembling the Penitent engine. And as usual, we'll be needing our super glue and our Instaset. But we will get into that next week. So join us again next week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye. Hey Brush Monkeys, Tom from Flying Monkey Studios here. If you like what you see, click like. If you want to find out when new videos get posted, click subscribe. Comment below on what you want to see on future videos. Visit our Patreon site for lots of ways that you can support me in doing what I do. You can also visit our Instagram and Facebook pages to see all the miniatures that I paint on this channel and see how you can get your hands on one of your own. So thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for watching my videos, and I will see you guys later. Bye.